Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome to the Hey Hashem podcast. I am Dr. Hanan Hashem. I'm a licensed psychologist and an educator, and I am so grateful that you're here, particularly for this episode and particularly for this series. So this episode, it's part of a special series that I'm starting called Rooted in Healing. Rooted in Healing, it's a project that I created to support Muslims in healing intergenerational trauma through cultural and spiritual grounded practices. And inshallah, over the next few weeks, and hopefully longer than that as well, I'll be sharing a series of episodes that are focused specifically on this topic. Now, Rooted in Healing, it's more than just a title, and it took me a while to find that title, but it's a space. I want it to be a space where we can explore the social, cultural, and spiritual roots of healing using psychological and systemic frameworks. So whether it's through courses like this one, through my podcast, or through the process groups that we're going to be starting in the fall, inshallah, this work is here to remind you that you are not alone. And although this is not easy, healing is possible. So I decided to focus on intergenerational trauma because in all of the work that I do, when I'm teaching, when I'm doing my clinical work, when I'm doing community consultation or community engagement work, I continue to witness in all of it how the unresolved impact of trauma, it shows up in our relationships. It shows up in our relationships to ourselves, in our relationships to one another, our family, our friends, strangers on the street, and it shows up in our relationship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, trauma, which has so many different sources, it can also be passed down through generations. And this can have a really heavy impact on our sense of self and our sense of purpose. And can also have an impact on our ability to support one another, to trust the people around us, to build healthy villages that prioritize both accountability and compassion. So acknowledging and healing the trauma that comes from these intergenerational patterns that we pick up, it's a personal aim. But what really makes it stronger is when we do it in community. And that's why I want to be very blunt. I want to be very open. I want to talk about these issues. But it's also why I'm starting the process groups that I will be facilitating with my colleagues, with my peers, starting in the fall. So go to my website, heyhashem.com, go to the Rooted in Healing tab, and fill out the sign-up form there for the process groups if you're interested in joining. Now, before I dive into the main modules, which will come after this one, and there's going to be 7 in total, I really want to take some time in this pre-module episode to really prepare your heart and your mind for what's ahead. Because healing, it's not just about gaining knowledge or checking off practices. It's actually a very deeply sacred spiritual process, and one that really deserves your presence, your care, and your intentionality. So, and before I do any of that, I really want to take a second to acknowledge the violent backdrop of our current context. It can feel very disorienting to be talking about something that doesn't directly address that violence, but I am a believer in the importance of healing as a pathway to more direct action so that we can be part of larger goals and collective healing. And what I know very personally from my clinical practice is that we, and I say we intentionally, are still carrying, even through this current context of violence, and moving through with our own personal traumas. And so that is going to be still very important for us to address. And if we don't tend to those wounds, the personal wounds, we then risk creating harm, even in the spaces that are meant for justice. So healing isn't separate from resistance. It's actually what makes it sustainable. All right, so what to expect from this course? So let me begin by telling you what you can expect. So this journey, it's structured in a way that respects the pace of healing. I put a lot of work into creating this curriculum, and inshallah, you find it beneficial. Each module is designed to build upon the last, gently guiding you from understanding trauma to learning how it moves through families and communities, and then into pathways for healing of the body, of the heart, of the mind, and of the spirit. So you're going to hear me use a trauma-informed lens throughout this entire series. So that means I'm going to avoid rushing or pressuring you, and I'm always going to remind you that you are the expert of your own experience. It's also really important to remember here that there are no gold stars for this work. There's no linear path to getting better. And so I encourage you to pause, return, cry, write, pray. My point here is that it's okay to step away from the work if you need to. Tap into your internal resources, tap into your presence, and take care of yourself. To get the most out of this course, here are some things that I am going to encourage you to do throughout this process. The first is set aside some quiet time to listen without multitasking if possible. I know we're all very busy, but if you can, and I'm trying to keep all of these episodes pretty short, but if you can, try to set some time to just listen without multitasking. Keep a journal nearby. You're probably going to be thinking about a lot of things as we go through these modules. And so keep a journal nearby, call a friend afterwards. I really do encourage you to sign up for the process group so that we can take all of the stuff that's coming up for you here and we can actually process it in community. But in addition to that, see how processing our trauma with other people can actually be an impediment sometimes, or sometimes create more connections for healing with other people. I want you to engage with all the reflection prompts, and not as like homework that you have to do it, but just as like a doorway into your own story so that you can get to know yourself better. I'm not going to collect these from you. No one's going to ask you about them. Just do it for yourself. And most importantly, I want you to allow your full self to arrive. It's certainly possible that our full selves are not always present at all times. You want to be able to establish safety. You want to be able to notice all the different parts of you that want to listen and other parts of you that maybe don't want to listen. And so the parts of you that feel strongly about certain topics is going to come up, and there's going to be parts of you that are still wounded that are also going to come up. And so I want you to pay attention on how you plan to honor the arrival of every part with the nuances that you walk with. Okay, so let's pause here together and set our intentions. I want you to take a second and ask yourself, what brings me here today? What is my motivation to take part in processing and transforming this trauma that I'm carrying? Is it pain that you've carried for years and you've just kind of gotten to the point where you're done? Is it a pattern that you see that's repeating in your family that you know is not sustainable to keep your family together, to keep relationships intact? Is it a deep yearning for something to shift, something to change, even if you don't know what that is yet? The Prophet ﷺ taught us that actions are judged by intentions, and healing is no different. And so even if you don't have a clear goal, I want you to set a sincere intention. Maybe the intention is, I want to understand myself better, or I want to break a cycle for the next generation, or I want to reconnect with Allah while I heal. So your intention isn't something to get perfect. It's just something to anchor you when the waters get rough. All right, this next part is important. Healing from trauma, especially generational trauma, it requires a deep, deep gentleness. It requires a deep sensitivity. So you might encounter memories, emotions, or realizations just by listening to the series that can be really heavy. And so please know you don't have to force anything open. You don't have to sit with the trauma at all times. That is where you want to sit with trauma in places that are contained. So again, with a friend, in a journal, in therapy, in the process groups that are coming up. Check in with yourself and go at your own pace. So in Islamic psychology, we recognize that the qalb, the heart, the spiritual heart, is dynamic. It's constantly turning. It carries our emotions, our spiritual state, our desires, our fears. And when a heart has been wounded, the healing must be slow and tender. So here are just a few guidelines to take care of yourself. I want you to, number one, ground often. What does grounding mean? So don't worry, I'm going to actually teach you some pretty solid grounding tools that I teach my clients all the time in the next module. 2, name your needs. Do you need rest? Do you need connection? Do you need a reminder that you're safe? Try as best as you can. And this is a practice that is really going to like bleed into other parts of your life, to be able to name what it is that you need in that moment. 3, take breaks. I cannot emphasize this enough. If this is important for you, there's no falling behind. These podcast episodes are available online at any time. You're always welcome to come back in. And inshallah, these process groups, if you are not able to attend them the fall season, they will be inshallah offered every season. 4 is to reach out for support. And this can be from a trusted friend, from a therapist, or from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is al-Latif, the most gentle. Healing, it's not always a comfortable process, but discomfort does not mean harm. And inshallah, you'll learn to recognize the difference. Okay, so let's talk about the pillars that will hold you through this work. Faith, self-compassion, and community. These are the 3 pillars that I want you to be thinking about. So first, there's faith. Healing is not separate from our spiritual life. It is an essential part of it. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, verily, with hardship comes ease. Not after, with. With hardship comes ease. What I have learned over and over again through the work that I do and through my own personal experience is that look at the hardship. Pay attention to the suffering. Do not avoid struggle, because in it comes truth, comes ease, comes a better understanding of ourselves and a closer connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this verse reminds us that even within our suffering, there are seeds of softness, of mercy, of possibility. We all know, or for those of us that grew up learning about the prophetic tradition, that grief, trauma, and longing are not signs of weaknesses, but actually are signs of the human condition. Sometimes, and this is a strategy that I personally use, and I invite you to also lean into, is that when I'm feeling a certain way, trapped, sad, or grieving, I think about the specific prophets or the individuals from our Islamic history, like Maryam or Asiya, and I remember them, and I think about them. I really truly imagine them sitting with me as we go through our emotional experiences together, right next to each other. This has been a very powerful strategy to really humanize myself and remember the strategies that the folks that I'm imagining have been using for their own emotional experiences. So I want you to bring your du'as into this work. I want you to bring your salah, your confusion, your awe. Bring your spiritual practice not as a performance, but as a lifeline. So that was faith as the first pillar. The second pillar is self-compassion. And this is perhaps the hardest one, honestly. I think we talk a lot about self-care and self-compassion, but many of us, especially those of us that were raised in environments that were shaped by shame, we have a very intense internalized harshness. Why am I not over this yet? Why can't I just move on? Why do I feel so broken? I hear these questions really often in my clinical practice and honestly in my personal life. But healing, it flourishes in compassion, not criticism. I'm going to say that again. Healing flourishes in compassion, not criticism. Islamic psychology, it teaches us that we are born in a fitra, a natural disposition of goodness. And trauma, it covers, it distorts, and it twists the fitra, but it never actually erases the essence. It just twists and covers and distorts how it's expressed. And so part of this work, you're going to be tapping back into in honoring your own fitra and temperament that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created within you. And so I want you to let that inner voice be as kind as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with his creation. Now, the third pillar is community. I want you to remember that healing is not meant to happen in isolation. We are relational beings. We are designed to co-regulate, to be witnessed, to be loved and mirrored, and to do that for other people as well. And so that's why this course is really going to encourage you to think about your healing village. Who helps you feel safe? Who models the values you're trying to live into? And how can you start building community around that? Okay, so before we close, I want to share something that I'm really excited about and that I've already mentioned a couple of times. And so as part of this healing journey, I'm also going to be offering 7-week support process groups that is going to run parallel to the 7 modules of this course. So each week we're going to come together virtually to reflect, process, and hold space for one another as we move through the material. Each space is going to have a limit, a cap of 7 to 8 people. So I really encourage you to sign up because I only have 2 groups running this fall. And so for 7 to 8 people each. It's one thing to be able to learn all of this on your own, but being witnessed in community with others who are walking similar paths can be incredibly powerful. So this group is going to offer guided discussion, grounding practices, a space for storytelling, and gentle accountability. You don't have to do this work alone. Healing is really magnified when it's shared. So if that feels supportive to you, I want you to go to my website, heyhashem.com/rootedinhealing. And I want you to sign up for the process group, fill out the form. And once you fill out the form once, inshallah, I'll be able to send you emails about any future offerings, any future groups in the case that you're not able to attend the ones in the fall. So inshallah, it will be open to the public. It will be Muslim centered. So we will be talking about a lot of Islamic concepts, but you don't have to be Muslim to attend. I want to recognize that being Muslim looks so different. People come in all shapes and sizes. People come with all different relationships to their Muslim identity. And so, there might be people who may just be curious about Islam, or maybe people who are not interested in the faith itself, but can really feel like they can really benefit from the Islamic principles that come from it. And so honestly, whoever you are, I'd love to have you with us. I do want you to know that as a requirement for attending these groups, there will be a pre-group meeting, which is a short 30-minute meeting with me and my co-facilitator, where we're just going to talk to you about the group and make sure that, this is what you're interested in and that you can benefit from the group. Okay, so as we close this pre-module episode, I want to leave you with a final image. Imagine that you are a seed, a small seed, hidden, perhaps even forgotten for a time. Trauma, it can really feel like a weight that's pressing you down deep into the soil. But under the right conditions, sunlight, water, time, and nourishment, we can create a different pressure that can really become a force for growth for you wherever you are. So let this course be your sunlight and water. Let your intentions be the root, and let your faith, self-kindness, and chosen community be the garden that you grow within. So take your time, take what you need, and know that you're not alone. I'm very honored to be here with you. And until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.